We're live. We're live. Happy Sunday, May 19th. I'm April Jackson with Open Up, and my co-host is here.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Wesley Hamilton. Of course, we are excited to be back with you guys this month and just talk about some pretty hot topics. I know you missed this last month because we missed you, so you don't have to say much. We know. Um, but the good thing about it is this is our 40th episode, and as we keep continuing these conversations, um it is just it's beautiful to see where we are, and the conversations that we've had. So I guess before we start, just let everyone know we're definitely pushing this into podcast form and doing some more things that we can be intentional about creating the messages that have been a part of this conversation for 40 episodes, or at least 39, and then this one. So just want to get everybody pumped up because we definitely have a lot of content out there, but we're doing our best to curate them in the best ways possible so you can be able to listen to them and grow, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we are growing. 40 episodes is wild.
Uh,
And we don't often say this, but I feel like PBS, like your support helps us. And it really does. When you support Open Up, when you support Disabled but Not Really, you're supporting platforms like this. And so with the support that we've received from individuals and also from funders or whatnot, they are investing in us. So Sunday Safe Spaces, we've told you before, we're putting it in a podcast form. Well, there's only Wes and myself and Melissa in the background doing everything, especially Marissa. But we have a team now. And so we have a team of individuals who are a part of Open Up now, who are going to really help Wes and I do some of the legwork. So we're excited to go another 40 and beyond, and also like blast it out in different ways because it's so needed,
it's funny that you say leg work.
You know what? You talk about ableism and language, right? Thank you, Wes.
No.
But you know what? You still got legs.
No, but you use it in the right way though. Like they're helping us with the leg work. So I really liked how you phrased that, because I felt really seen at that moment. Because there's only so much I can do.
Right? Right? We do with what we have in our bodies. So absolutely. I'm excited to have us move on. So this, we did miss you all last month. And last month we revisited the outdoor inclusion and outdoor activities with Marcus Schaffner, who started an organization, and the premise is to really bring accessibility, which sounds weird, accessibility to outdoor, activities and adventures. And like, we should all be able to go outside, but we don't all have access, right?
We don't have access. And unfortunately, most community parks and city parks aren't even accessible. And a lot of people don't see that, right? Like I did my own I guess, activities in a sense to work with our Parks and Rec department here in Kansas City, and went through a couple of parks and just knew that if I wasn't physically in shape, that I wouldn't have that opportunity. But then that is the small basic thing when we're talking about parks, and when you thinking about things like Marcus and just the concept of other activities, rather is going into camping, or going into canoeing or kayaking. And these activities are available, but the access to them sometimes is the issue, right? So absolutely. Access to outdoors, man.
Yeah.
Ooh,
and it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal. There's affordability, there's, if you're city living, you just the concrete jungle, right? And if you have any kind of like physical abilities that prevent you from walking on the trail or getting into the boat or whatever, like you don't have access to it. And nature is so important. It's fundamental to our souls and our spirits. And when we talk about being grounded and mindful and healthy, just being able to breathe clean air, see the green, see the green. I had to bust out my money tree plan on what.
I see you, April. But thinking of that though, so a couple things just to kind of because there was some new information that I was provided recently as I've been trying to be more outdoors. And before we go into something different, to share some resources and some knowledge that I do have about outdoors and people with disabilities. So I found out that majority of the state parks have, or most of them, make sure you call. They have like a tractor type of wheelchair that you can rent out if they have it available, to help you get over certain trails and things like that. Of course, I've used that wheelchair. It's kind of bumpy and all of this, but at the same time, it would definitely give you the access if you need it. I worked with a company out in Canada recently, about a year ago. It was called Whistler Adaptive. And they actually utilized the old Paralympic like housing area when the Olympics were out there, whenever that was. But that's the housing that they use for people to come in, and they do programs that are focused on like any outdoor activity. I actually did mountain biking in the forest with them. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, those are definitely a couple different entities. And shout out to the group that wants to take me to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
I saw you put that on X. Like you're like, first you were like, I want to go. Does anybody know how I can go? And
well, you know what? So here was the thing, April. This was a great group. I already worked with this group before. They're actually the group that has a device that got me to be able to explore Jerusalem and Bethlehem when I went over there last year. And so they've done this climb with people with disabilities before, and they reached out, but because of the things that were happening over there, it kind of got halted. It is something that you do have to pay for. So of course I'm like, they like, oh, you want to come to Africa? I'm like, of course I want to come to Africa.
Right.
Like, what? Right? Like I've been trying to get to Africa since I was born. So but at the same time, it was one of those things where I know that is amazing, right? You don't hear people, and of course, like we're talking about the subject of outdoors, but you don't hear individuals with disabilities saying, I'm about to go climb a mountain. Like, first of all, how I'm gonna do it. And so to be able to know a company or an organization that is focused on outdoors and activities of helping people with disabilities reach peaks like Mount Kilimanjaro, I think that's like amazing. So my goal is to go over there, really see not only like what it takes to do this type of activity, but at the same time, how do we find a way to bridge a gap so that more people with disabilities can have this opportunity. And of course, like I said, it might not be where it's free, right? Because that's just not how things go as much. But at the same time, when you can kind of try to find alignment within organizations that can support individuals that really want to do these type of things, and then work with institutions that are overseas that are actually doing it, or even like in Canada. So just saying, there are a lot of organizations understanding that outdoor is important for people with disabilities and are trying their best to create the access. But we have so much work to do within our cities, within our communities, within ourselves to even see ourselves being accepting and welcoming to that access. You talk about travel, you talk about all of these other things that come into play with that. So I definitely understand the layers to it. But what we're just letting people know is like, just call, right? Call. Most people have information on what's accessible and what's not. And I mean, if you want to wing it, you can wing it too. I winged a lot of things and was stopped in my tracks. Okay, but
Yeah.
I wanted to see how far I could go.
And you learned, right?
I did. Everything's a learning experience. You know,
Right.
life is a
Right.
learning
Right.
experience. So
And that motivates, like I was motivated. I was like, this dude is going to Mount Kilimanjaro. I was like, let me save my pennies. Where can I go next? I mean, but that when you see representation of yourself doing things, you're like, oh, it's possible. And
yeah,
so, like you're saying, it's a possibility. And Marcus's organization was one of them. It's got money, and they're looking for funding to take kids to snowboard or hike. You know, he takes groups of Black men out to hike and stuff. So what you're doing, I think, is so important and influential for us all. And everyone, we will drop the link in our newsletter.
yeah.
So check out our newsletter. It comes out the third week of every month after this. We wait until we have this live stream, and then we drop it. So we'll share
So
information.
crazy, April, that within the climb or the time that I'm over there during the climb, it's followed by a safari in the Serengeti. I didn't share that, you know what I mean? But you know, Lion King 5.0 over here on wheels. I'm about to be out here feeling it.
That's going to be incredible.
So I'm definitely excited. I'll be honest though, you know, this is where, you know, we can kind of start to talk about that mental health thing. Like I know a lot of people ask me, am I ready? I had one guy like, are you really going? And you know, he's like, are you scared? I'm like, I'm not. He's like, I'll be scared. I'm like, I thought about it. Like, is this something I should
Like I
read?
wasn't, but now am I scared? Or should I be?
But the the areas that I want to highlight through this climb is how vulnerable I have to become. You know, this is involving hiking, this is involving tough peaks, areas, altitude changes. You know, there is a lot that I have to focus on top of the lack of access, the lack of restrooms being accessible, the huts that we have to sleep in might not be the best. What is it going to do for my skin? Like the mental readiness I have to become just to be able to be that vulnerable to do something like that. Because sometimes a lot of the reasons why we don't do things with as people with disabilities is because of the process and what it could do, right? Like I don't know what it could do to my body. I don't know what it could do. You know, trying to make sure that I'm clean, making sure that I'm sanitized because of the way that I have to utilize the bathroom and things like that. So that is what I want to be transparent because it is fun. But for my viewers that, you know, do identify with a disability, understand that these are the things that I'm definitely thinking about because mentally, like, I'm like, okay, what I gotta do, like, I gotta reach out to companies and figure out, like, are there protected cushions that I can use that are better? You know, this is really putting me in one of those positions that I like don't want to like be detrimental to my body trying to do something amazing. So I have to really prepare myself mentally and physically just to be able to do this particular climb. So just wanted to share that for anyone because it is amazing, but there's a lot, even the flight, right? Like making sure I get there.
How long of a flight is it?
Oh, it was like 18 hours, but it was some, you know, some layovers and things like that. But it's still that, right? Like the
Even like
flight.
circulatory issues that happen when you're on the plane. And
Yeah. I mean, the benefit for me is that I fly a lot. And so I do know how first class. I don't like first class. It's gonna cost a lot, right? But what I always say is like it's the convenience. You know, you got pies that you can lay down, so I don't have to worry about sitting in one position for hours.
Right.
You know, and so hopefully I got a good enough miles. And if anybody want to donate some miles, you know, I'm here for it. I mean,
give them.
I'm just gonna be honest. Like one of my things was that this is an amazing opportunity, but because it's like one of those opportunities you don't see a lot, I did want to reach out to people and see who wanted to be involved, to be a part of this, because I am a solo traveler, but at the same time, there are amazing things. And I did get some good organizations that reached out to support me in this as well. So again, a lot of this is just me wanting to be that visual representation, but at the same time, I'm trying to show what's possible and show what levels of vulnerability you have to be in this life to be able to thrive.
Yeah. And the word community came up when I hear you sharing, like, I have reached out to people and I'm traveling solo, but there's a community that I am bringing into my circle of support. And
Yeah.
that's real important for mental health, right? And physical health.
Yeah. I mean, because most people with disabilities or people with disabilities, Black individuals, Black people with disabilities, if you represent the BIPOC, there are so many areas, right, that you do feel alone, based on identity, things that we talked about. Intersectionality sometimes plays a major part.
Yeah.
And so to have people that just see you,
Yeah.
and want to find a way to help. Like, I definitely had someone ask, like, you don't need somebody to come with you. And I'm like, they didn't say nothing, right? Like, I'm like,
I didn't think I hadn't thought about.
And through the conversations, I realized that no, they have a amazing group of people that are willing to support and build up this opportunity. And so community is very important. And even the support that I'm getting from the back end I think is amazing, because there's not one entity that I'm not aligned with.
That's important.
And so I'm very big on the representation of disability and going above and beyond to thrive in life. And so I do want individuals that are tied to that message, right? And so and again, so it is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah, we really wanted to touch on that.
I feel like I feel like it is becoming more and more, I guess, in conversations. Shout out to Mental Health KC, because I am a keynote speaker next week for their mental health conference. And so I'm really excited about that, because I personally made it my intention to speak more about mental health, like last year. Like, I definitely wanted mental health to be a topic that I talk more about, just because of my journey and the things that I was able to do. There are definitely areas of mental strength and readiness and exercises that I had to go through to be able to have the mindset and mentality I have, the level of gratitude I have for life, the ability to not, have heavy anxiety anymore, even dealing with my own circumstances, the depression. Like, people don't talk about mental health enough. And everyone goes through something mentally. And, it could be just in a day, you get overwhelmed. You don't know what that does to you, your body, your mind. Like, tell me about it, April. Like, just in a sense, like, what would you say, like, even the importance, and we'll go into maybe some conversations we've heard throughout this month about people and what that does for mental. But I would love to kind of hear, like, what's the practices, or like, what would you advise in Mental Health Awareness Month?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, because this month, like, I'm creating a talk that I'm going to be doing for, like, nonprofit leaders, and there's intersectionality. All of these nonprofit leaders are people of color and come from marginalized communities like ourselves. And, I talk about mindfulness a lot and mindfulness practices. And it's so important to practice what I preach, right? And one talk, the woman asked me, she said, can you talk about resilience, but like how resilience can be bad? And You know, we really dived into it, and I did research on it because resilience is good and we all can build our resiliency, but especially as like Black folks, as women, as, you know, we're just those who are disabled, those of us who are disabled, it's like we push our boundaries because we feel like we have to strive. And
Yeah.
in order to thrive, okay, I got to prove to other people that I can do more than the average person
Yeah.
in my stance. And we cross our boundaries and we cross our boundaries and then we become depleted. And so being able to say no, being able to step back, being able to like take care of ourselves, and it doesn't mean you're going to feel good necessarily. Sometimes it's sitting in that pain, sitting in that depression and recognizing, okay, I am depressed. Why? Let me work through it. It's not all toxic positivity
Yeah.
that we're talking about. But when do we have the space to breathe? You know, like you said, in a day, you might have to work 8 hours. You might have to take care of some kids or some parents or some community people, some friends, bills pile up and things happen. And just being able to sit and breathe can sometimes remind you, I need to just breathe. I need to take space. I need to just be away from everything. And whatever it is for you, that is what it is for you, right?
You know, it's crazy that you say that, April, because I would say this year more has been where I've definitely honed into my mental health, just 110, 120%. Like, um, heavy, stressful days, I make sure that I go out and push for about an hour.
Yeah.
I actually relocated, and I know everyone can't do this, right? But if you have the ability, I relocated where I was closer to trails that were in pushing distance. So I don't have the excuse of why I can't go outdoors and be able to relieve stress at times. You know, and as a person with a disability, I always tell, I get it, right? Like, especially if you're a wheelchair user, like if you get frustrated, sometimes if you can't go nowhere, it's hard. You know, I always tell my able-bodied peers, you know, I'm like, well, when you get frustrated, you can just walk off and maybe you go outside and breathe for a second, but going outside for me could be complicated. So for
Yeah.
me, I made it more intentional. What does my space around me look like for me to breathe in moments? So like,
Mhm.
I love your plant, and trust me, I got my little snake plant back here. It's just chilling, but I'm still trying to create the office space. But all to say is that my living room space though is very um oh man, it's just full of plants, April. And it's like it's such a vibe in there. You know, I have my incense burning and like I just had the music playing, and it's just and I make sure every day that I give myself time. I even make sure that I'm in silence at least a couple hours a day. I don't I'm okay with my own thoughts, right?
Oh my gosh. Love I love that night. My mornings are, and it's taken me a while to get to this point because like when my kids are younger, I couldn't really take these mornings to myself, but the being able to just get up slowly, read, meditate, pray, and just be in silence and just listening to the birds,
Yeah.
you know, outside. And I don't care where you live. You could be in New York in an apartment building. At a certain point, there's some quietness. And that's beautiful. To me, that's beautiful just to sit in silence at times and be intentional, right? If we can find these moments to just be intentional with ourselves, that could help our mental health.
Most people, you know, always question me, even when I do keynotes, and I'll be like, I'm an early riser. And they're like, well, how's early? I'm like, you know, 4 a.m. I don't wake up at 4 a.m. no more, y'all. It's been the hardest thing ever to get back to 4 a.m. Don't mean I'm not still preaching it, all right? I'm still about a good 5:55, 6 a.m. right now. And
That's good for you, right?
but I get up and I go after it. But for me, it's like I just shared like a post of me going to Maine recently, and my last day there, I got up like I googled what time the sunrise was. It was like 5:15 in the morning. So I got up real early, just to be able to sit in that moment. And of course, for me, I can't access certain things to see. So I bought a drone that would give me the ability to see the things that I can't reach. And that was my whole concept, was like, now I will always have access, at least where like I can fly, right? Because they do have
I like
restrictions.
that.
But it was one of
Yeah.
those things that like 5:15 in the morning, I'm sitting, like, it was, what came to my mind was, sometimes we don't know how peaceful the world is because we wake up when the world is already in chaos.
Busy, moving. Yep.
Right? But when you can wake up before the whole world wakes up, you get to see it, actually how life moves.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's so still and it's so peaceful. The air is fresh, right? Like you don't, it's just all of these things that, like you just said, like you, it doesn't matter where you are, there's a moment and a time in the day that there is solitude, even
Right.
when you can get outside. And so being able to find that, and again, finding space. I was just had a conversation with someone that's mentioned their levels of depression at work because they were enclosed in spaces. And then
Mm.
they moved to a space that has windows. And he was just sharing how he is more happy to go to work every day.
That
And
little thing.
it's like, you need sunlight, yeah.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have windows by you. You need to be able to have plants that are thriving. Sometimes plants let you know the air in your home. They let you know like the environment. If they're dying, it might not be because you don't have a green thumb. It could be the negativity in the house. It could be all of these
Exactly.
things that plants react to. So when you see a lot of people with plants and they're thriving, you should think about the peaceful vibes and the energy that's being pushed into that space, right? Because
Yeah.
even outside, plants die when the environment change.
Right. And that happens inside. You are so right. And I was reading a book about a family in Louisiana, and that was the mom's wisdom that she would share. Like when plants die, it's because they're taking the negative energy out. But it really is like if the oxygen levels are off, if there
Yeah.
are pollutants in your house, like the plants will suck all that in. And if they die, then that's what happens. And so, you find new dirt and you repot new plants.
Listen, I did it yesterday. I think I've been repotting for like 3 or 4 weeks. I like buy new pots and new plants, but that's also just time for me. Yesterday was crazy busy, and I said, you know what? Tonight I'm gonna go, repot a couple plants. And I did that for about 2 hours, and it just made my night so easy. And I got a lot of work done. I juggle a lot of work. I'm doing a lot of things, and I still give myself time and grace. Um, and that wasn't something I did, and the other part for my mental, because you can do all of these things. If you're not eating the right foods, yeah, I'm sorry.
And
Not putting the right stuff in your body, yeah, I'm
so sluggish, right? And so
sorry.
tired.
Yeah.
And I that's it's interesting you say that because when I'm developing this workshop for well-being, she's like, "Can you talk about how nutrition affects this?" And I was definitely, yes, I can. And there are two ways to look at it too. Look at it in context to your culture and who you are and what your body's used to, right? And so if you're vegetarian, like a lot of, my friends who are Indian, like they're vegan based. And it's like, and eat your foods, make sure whatever you're eating is balanced, but feed yourself, right? Nourish yourself, drink your water, eat your fruits and vegetables. Like no matter how you eat, you're eating fruits and vegetables and whatever type of
Absolutely.
diet you have.
Food is medicine,
Yeah.
and it's a healing medicine. I was the worst person I ever in life when I had a bad diet.
Mm-hmm.
I know it. I know it. Like, and I'm not saying that I can go. Going back and eating the same things won't shift, right? Because I
Right.
do have a level of control. But back then, I didn't have self control, so I allowed the things that I was putting inside of me control who I was and the things that I was going through. Because you
Yeah.
never know, like how you feel in the inside can literally shift your mood, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Literally, it does. Yeah,
And
the hormones that you release, the stress hormones, and I'm not just talking about gender,
yeah,
related hormones, like the stress hormones really come through, and it makes you engage with stress and other things in different ways. And that's another key thing I think for Mental Health Awareness Month is even when you said like I don't control, right? And in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm doing all the right things, and I still ended up with a chronic disease,
yeah,
right? And now I pay more attention to my body when I'm stressed.
yeah,
Because now I listen to the cues. Maybe I should say that. They were already there, and that's what I think is real important when we're talking about find those moments of stillness. Find those moments where you can just be, because then you might hear what your body's trying to tell you. Because stress will it'll cover. You could eat right, you can
hmm
exercise. If you're under some undue stress, that heart will give out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That that gut, those kidney stones, that severe illness can come because the body has so much stress, like it's circulating that cortisol. It's like that adrenaline isn't always good for you. So that to me is one of the main things for the Mental Health Awareness Month. Like be aware of your stress levels.
And I think, and especially for people with disabilities, to understand that stress will come in moments that you're just trying to live.
Mm,
And so, like for me, just like you said, like understanding your stress levels. So if it's hot and my body starts to overheat and it's out of my control and I'm trying to move and I start to sweat, I'm becoming stressed out through the process. And so
mm,
in that, I have at times have had reactions in a sense because there's the level of discomfort.
yeah,
I've had to try to be more transparent with those around me to say like, and I do now let people know if I'm too hot, you
yeah.
know, like I might need a second, like I probably need to cool down before I can really speak, like because I can't talk through pain sometimes.
Mm, mm. That's a
So
quote. I cannot talk through pain. That's the word right there.
you know, because that's when you're gonna get the worst of me, right? I don't
Yeah,
care. Don't even have me at the event. If I'm in pain, if there's a hard way to respond, you know, passively. Like, and so that is so just sharing that with people with disabilities, like start to understand like where your stress comes from because it can be daily things. You know, you spasm while you're driving, right? Like, or you know, have an accident why things like there are things that happen that most people you probably have a hard time explaining, but when you can understand how it happens you have a better way to control it.
yeah,
For me, like my biggest goal is I make sure I check the temperature before I leave the house every day, and I'm intentional about it because that lets me know not only what I need to wear, which most people should check the weather, but it's also let me know if it's super hot, if I can get, you know, if I can start the car first, if I can make sure I do the proper
you're
precautions.
preparing yourself.
Yeah, like so having a body that overheats real quick for people I don't know till I'm super hot. So same way as if I'm cold, like I don't know that I'm freezing until my teeth start chattering. That's
Yeah,
kind of part of my spinal cord injury. So when I'm in a house and I know it's hot outside, I just make sure I'm pretty cool before I go outside. So
yeah,
that means that I'm not like in a warm temperature house going right back into heat. And again,
right.
that's the thing about going to a, you know, a function, right, April?
Yeah,
And then you go right into the heat. You have those over layers of, you know, heat going on through your body. So for me, at least to get from one place to another, if it's really cool in there, then I know I can deal with the heat at least for 10 to 15 minutes before my body reacts directly to it. Compared to somebody else could go outside and be like, "Oh, it's hot." I'm like, "No,
and
I'm
then their body acclimates to it like
yeah."
slowly.
It's like a temperature gauge.
Yeah,
It just goes slower than most.
yeah,
So, you know, just so people can understand the context. And if people didn't know how
yeah.
that about your body, now you might know.
Now you know. You said something that made me think about when you're like things you can do. When I talked about that resiliency and knowing boundaries, it sounded to me like you said now I let people know. It sounded to me at a certain point you didn't let people know.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the agency I want us all. I had to learn that. Like, it's okay to, not suffer in silence. I think that's a big thing about mental health, and to let people know, to communicate. Or, I mean, you don't have to tell anybody anything. It's okay to let yourself know, like, this isn't okay for me. This isn't comfortable for me, or I need support in this. I think that's one of the key things to helping us really gain that fortitude and take care of our well-being.
No, I like that. I mean, when I spoke on it, I didn't think about it from that context, but I do share it with everybody. I'm 12 years in my injury, so there's a lot that I know now. So
Yeah.
think about when I first got injured, part of the mental health issues I was dealing with was thinking everybody knew what I was going through. So that created a level of a negative mindset, really, because you're thinking people supposed to know how to take care of you. If you and your mom lived a great life 2 days before your injury, you and your mom is learning your new life 2 days
Right.
after your injury.
Right.
And that's something I can teach people now, but it took years for me to understand that my mom was just figuring it out too.
Learning too.
Right? Like, and so those things, like when we're looking at understanding ourselves and our bodies, like sometimes we have to look at the people that are around us too, and that they're trying to learn. So the more you can be open and transparent, like I say, like I could talk right now, but if I get quiet, just give me 30 seconds and I'm jumping back in. But I might have an unbearable spasm that will literally stop me from just talking.
Yeah.
But the worst, and I tell my friends and family, the worst thing you could do is ask me, am I okay?
You're
In
like,
this moment, because if I have to think about it while I'm trying to get rid of it, then it starts to prolong the pain.
right, right, right.
Right. So it's like one of those things where most people don't understand pain definitely comes more as you think about it.
Yeah.
So when you hear people like, oh man, I was out all day, I didn't really hurt or nothing, it's because your mind wasn't on it. But when you get back home, if you just in quiet, sometimes that one little 30 seconds can now linger for 2-3 hours because that's what you have to focus on.
Yeah, because it's all neurological. And, I'll share with people, like, go back and look at some of our previous talks. I think it was 34, 35, but when we did the tapping, because
Yeah.
that's part of it. It's part of redirecting your senses. So you're not focusing on that pain. And it's like your body's like, oh, something else is going on. Okay. And that's what happens on a day to day. Like you said, we get out, we're doing things, we're not focusing or thinking.
Yeah.
Our nervous system is stimulated by something else. But when we sit, then that you're like, oh, shoot, it hurts. Or if somebody keeps bringing it up, you're like, okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, oh man, well, now that you said it, shoot. All right.
It's
Now
amplified now.
because now I got to sit here for a minute because now I got to deal with it. Right.
And you're you on top of it.
Yeah, and it's like there has to be a medium, but transparency. And again, that's why I'm looking forward to this trip in Africa because I get to be very vulnerable. And I think sometimes we care too much about other people's outlook on our everyday circumstances.
Yeah.
Right? Like I know so many people that don't share how they use the restroom, and that's fine. But when you're in places where you don't have a choice, right? And now
I need help.
but you're holding it so much because you have this ego or pride to share. Like there's hindrance that's mentally not allowing yourself to truly just be free.
Yeah.
And I speak from a level of I understand what I felt like when I was trapped in my own thoughts, and now I see how vulnerable I am to be able to say, like, if I gotta go, I gotta go. This is how I'm gonna go.
And we're all human beings. Like, we all have the same bodies. There's different sizes, shapes, colors, and abilities, but that's what makes us all human beings. Just like my dog, you'll watch a dog go poop and pee, so human beings too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand that level. I think that too is part of our mental health crisis in America right now, and it's been trying to be too normal or trying to be too fitting within societal culture. And so, how do I make sure that even as a person with a disability, I have to make this disability look so cool? Like I tell people, like I tell people that I make it look good, but I don't hesitate to share my challenges.
Right.
Right? Like I'm okay with living life because you're not gonna see me. You're not gonna see what I'm going through be what I'm like. You're not gonna see that on me, right?
Right. Right.
It doesn't mean that I don't.
That doesn't exist.
Like I still got a spinal cord injury, right? Like I still got a limit on how long I can sit all day. I have to remind people, like, man, did you sit for 12 hours? Because from me being at 6 a.m. to now, it's
Yeah.
been 12 hours, bro. Right. Like, and so it's again, being able to, advocate for yourself um is a big thing. And not caring about how people see you. I think more people feed into those that are completely vulnerable because there's nothing you're hiding, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're not hiding anything, people know you, right? Like they want to know more of you because now they're following they're not trying to. It's not a guessing game.
It's so hard though, Wes. Like that speaks to my ego. Accountability is hard. I was sharing, and I'll put it in our newsletter. And I like how you put yourself out there. And I just told Marissa the other day in the team, I was asked to write an article for Public Source. And first of all, editors are amazing. Rich Lord was the copy editor, and he asked me a ton of questions. And I wrote, we talked, and then I wrote the article, and he was like, "This is good. I don't have the same sense of when I spoke to you, though." And so, can you share a moment when you were vulnerable? Can you share this, share that? And I was like, it was my ego because I was so concerned about what other people would think,
Yeah.
It's so being vulnerable. And again, why? Because we're all human beings. We all have experiences. It's like you said, if you put yourself out there, people can relate because you're like, they
But
too
you,
are
you
vulnerable.
think about, and again, I think about going into more of a serious like piece of my life is like when I met the person that shot me. Um, there's a level of not only vulnerability, but definitely how people are going to see me, right? Especially
Mm-hmm.
from the way that I was raised, my background, my community, all of these different things that yeah, like ego, pride.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'll be honest, freedom sounded better.
That's another good quote. You know how my Wesley use them. In the podcast, I'm calling them. I might have some Aprilisms too. Freedom sounds better. And it is better, right?
It is because when I mean, take the toughest level of vulnerability you have to do, and you do that, then
Yeah.
all the smaller things become easier. They don't. It's like it's dinner time, and all of that was lunch, right? Like it's just like I can do it now.
Yeah.
And now that through life I can do more because I've already done it. I know what it feels like, and it didn't hurt, and it didn't feel bad, and it actually became more relatable. It actually started to help more people,
Yeah.
right? Like it actually now became a seed that was planted for more people to see what can be possible, because so much ego and pride never shows what is.
Right.
Right? Like, and so it's like, for me personally, that was it for me to be able to be now
Yeah.
more vulnerable. But then even as the founder of Disabled But Not Really,
Mm-hmm.
what I've seen in the last year of me trying to be a little bit more hands-on and intentional is that my vulnerability is now helping more people become vulnerable. Like when you get to share from a lived experience and you're right in front of somebody,
Yeah.
there's a level of energy and power that they get to take from you because they know that it happened and it's possible. And if you have a journey and you're willing to share that journey of how you got there, you become even more relatable to so many more people.
I love that. That lived experience is everything. And that's why we're doing this, right? We came together because listen to our voices. We are living this experience, and let's be in community with one another, right? Um,
Yes. So what would so I hope everybody got some things from at
yeah.
least that conversation. I would say before we kind of completely shift, what would be some resources on mental health that you would provide?
One, I would suggest like foundational stuff, like therapist, find a community, find a therapist, look at your local hospital. There are apps now like BetterHelp, and I'm not trying to promote any particular help app, but I've seen like betterhelp.com, or there was somewhere where
Okay.
I think with my yoga teaching, like they offered us a free month of betterhealth.com, or whatever, but go online, go to a local hospital, ask friends. Like usually a therapist comes through recommendations. And then also use the resources like the Calm app. Open up. We have a YouTube channel where you'll see meditations and practices. Those are like some foundational things I would say, like that are low hanging fruit.
Absolutely. I think for people, all of what April said for sure. Books, I always say that a lot of my healing came from books because a lot of my stories I didn't find relatable to those that were helping me, which most people will feel that way. But I found a lot of healing through books and understanding other people's stories. Mindset by Carol Dweck was a great one for me to
Mm-hmm.
understand levels of growth when it comes to mind from the mindset. How to Own Your Own Mind by Napoleon Hill. I always share that book. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is another great one by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And again, like these are books that I really speak religiously on because they truly help me understand my inner voice in a sense, and also understand my ego. Uh, so, uh, and yeah, I mean, with technology these days, you can truly find it. Everyone, you can go anonymous and write a Facebook post, and probably all your community has
Of course.
resources.
Yeah.
I've learned that the community that we are all seeking is the community that we have around us, but we sometimes don't realize their value,
Right.
right? So if you got a Facebook community, people have skill sets that could bring value. You just got to be vulnerable enough to make it look more than a positive, good-looking post maybe you're making.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can use your filters, right? Because sometimes it's there are two things, like being able to post it on like a Twitter, X, or Facebook, or Instagram. You can ask for resources, and you can, what doesn't resonate with you doesn't, and keep what does. And sometimes that helps to have that degree of separation, because when you talk to those who are in your inner circle, like they might see you as that 16-year-old or that 20-year-old, or
Absolutely.
you stuck in this space. And it's good to confide and have support of those who love you. And sometimes it's good to like branch out and get somebody who's not so maybe emotionally connected to you.
Oh, and let me just be very transparent, y'all. There is everything is okay with TTU, okay? But at the same time, TTU is not going to always be your educator. And if you don't know what that is, it's TikTok University. Everybody's learning everything on TikTok, and I'm not saying that it's wrong.
But anyone can post anything.
So just find resources that are valuable within your community.
Yeah.
If you are dealing with stuff, like it is good to repost videos and things, but I want you to get the help.
Right.
I want you to find somebody that is truly trying to help you find yourself and be a part of this society in such a positive and empowering way that we can all thrive, right? So
Right.
that is really, I mean, we're all good to twiddle our fingers on these phones, but man, like if you need some type of help, like find that help.
Find some person, and people are educated in that. Like you go to a doctor, specifically because they have studied it and they've researched it and they practice it. It's not to say they're the end all, like you're a partner with them, but I'm not a doctor. And so I'm going to go to someone who is. That's why I'm like, find someone to talk to. And there are resources available. And we'll look for some more, and I'll drop them in the newsletter to share with everyone too, because we are in community too. Speaking of books, I've been reading this book. I think I shared it, Legacy: A Black Physician Reckons with Racism in Medicine.
Oh, that's my girl. I know.
Uti Blackstock.
Yep.
Yeah. One of my close friends is a doctor here, and they went to medical school together. They went to Harvard summer medical camp together. She and I walk our dogs together. So that's another thing. Like, find somebody. Like, we have resolved life's whole problems by us going on a walk together. You know, for 2-3 hours, us going on a hike together. Like, we've been soundboards. But yeah, this is her close friend. I've been reading this. Advocate for yourself, especially, you know, my Black and brown brothers and sisters, because the medical system was built on our backs, literally, and on our bodies, but not for us. And so when you're saying, like, find people in your community, find people in your circle who support and listen to you, do that. And yeah, I bought this book for my doctors. I went to my doctor's appointment and I was like, here, you need this book, especially my white doctors.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, even the medical field is becoming more and more transparent to their ignorance and lack of knowledge. And I love that they are becoming more open to understanding, but that's the new generation of change makers that are happening. New generation of people that are wanting to see differences. I see it happening a lot with people with disabilities. Your normal therapists, they're not just allowing you to just be okay, right? Like, I mean, they're seeing how far you can thrive. I've seen a lot of shift in rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And so just speaking from that, like, I definitely see changes, but it happens because we're using our voices. We're in these rooms, you know, you're becoming vulnerable. You know, if you are on TTU, you're sharing your real story.
I love TTU.
It's either TTU or YTU, right? Like, it's either one of those. Either, you know, you're either on one of those, and but that's how I kind of talk to the youth now. I'm like, you get that from TTU? Like, yeah, I know you did. I know you did.
So before, like, this was a great conversation, and we were like, we're going to talk about all kind of things, and this is so important to us. This is why we've come together. Like, we want us to be strong, and not strong in the sense like you have to show some kind of you can be weak. You know what I mean? Strong in the sense that, like, you're fluid and you're flexible and you can move and you can really thrive in all ways, spiritually, physically, mentally, you know, mind, spirit, and body and soul. And so I'm glad we had this time together. We were going to talk about Kansas City Chiefs, but, you know, we'll let that be for another time.
You know what? I think, hey, to be honest, what I will say, because there's definitely been a couple crazy topics this week that didn't happen.
Oh, Lord, right?
So with that being said, taking care of your mental health is not engaging into everything that media pushes out.
Yeah. Filter that stuff.
You know what I mean? Because, I mean, there's definitely some stuff that came out, and you know, we're not going to, but again, I allow the other podcasters and stuff to have they
pontificate on it, right?
The bloggers, but taking care of your mental health is not engaging in everything, especially if it triggers you.
Right. And that's what I was thinking of too, with all the turmoil going, with the war, and just it's in one sense, I'm glad that it's being put out there so people can't hide it and act like it's not happening. In the other sense, like, protect what your eyes watch and what your ears hear. Take care of yourself, because it can all trigger us. And it's almost like we are a part of it, because we're a world that is connected, and the fight starts within. Take care of yourself so you do have the wherewithal and the resiliency to speak and act and do in ways that you want to.
Absolutely. Most people are empaths and don't know it. We all feel others. And so, again, anyway, we talked about gratitude, everybody. Be grateful for life. Know that I do have to set the tone gratitude journal that you can find.
Yes. We'll put that link in the newsletter too, so you can buy it from them.
I'm gonna be more intentional about pushing it out too this year, and, like, you know, sharing So again, definitely the goal is to really just take care of your mental, y'all. As we have conversations every episode, we are providing nuggets, books, resources to help you in different areas. So make
Yeah.
sure you check out the episodes on our YouTube channel and Facebook pages over there, Open Spaces and things.
We are not on TTU, but however, we are alive to you. And, you know, I'm going to be intentional too about constantly sharing mindfulness and practices, and know you all that we really work to practice what we preach. And we are all in this together. We have our ups and our downs and our rounds and our rounds, but we're in community and we love it. So I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, Wes.
Absolutely. You do the same. I'm excited for the week. I don't even know what's going to happen, but God did.
All right, friends. We'll see you. Happy 40th episode, and we'll see you at 41 next month, around Father's Day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.